In this free masterclass, I'm going to show you how to build a massive audience on Substack in just 45 minutes per day. It's 100% beginner friendly. It won't suck up all your free time. And most importantly, it will help you see results in the next few weeks. So this is for you if you're a coach, a consultant, a content creator, an expert on a specific topic, and would like to get more subscribers out of your Substack so that you can monetize what you know. Then here's what you'll discover in this free training. How to avoid the number one mistake that's killing your growth, even if you post daily. The 3 elements to grow a Substack faster than the majority of writers, and the step-by-step system to do all of it in just 45 minutes a day so that you can do this in your spare time. My name is Matt Jarrell, and I've been making a full-time income online since 2014. I've created over 100 digital products since 2013, and I've grown my audience to over 9,500 subscribers on Substack in just 13 months. So the first thing that you need to know is that Substack is a huge opportunity right now. The reason is because it's growing insanely fast. So here's a graph that I quickly put together. And as you can see right now, we are within a huge growth phase of the platform. And no, you're not too late, because we're still expecting at least a 200 million monthly visitor upside, which means more eyeballs towards your content. So before actually getting started about how to create the content itself that will grow your audience, there is one crucial mistake you need to be aware of and you need to fix, because this is something that I see new writers on the platform struggling with. And quite honestly, it hurts me when I see people who have been on this platform posting for 3 years and not even getting more than 300 email subscribers. And that mistake is basically knowing who you're writing for. When you don't know who you're writing for, you're confusing people because they don't know what to expect whenever they see your name. And number 2, you're also confusing the algorithm, because the algorithm don't know to whom it should show your content to. So the first step is to ask yourself, who's your best reader? Who is that reader that would be interested in reading absolutely everything you put out there? And the reason why we're asking this is not because we have an overinflated ego, is simply because we actually want to make sure that we are serving that specific reader extremely well. The internet is overflowing with content, and the only way to be relevant is to be ultra specific and to serve your reader extremely well. So now you might be asking, okay, how can I actually do this? Well, there are 2 ways to find your best reader. First, think about psychographics. So psychographics is basically the mental state the person that you want to target is actually in. I know many people who are starting on Substack and say, hey, I want to write about so many different things. I'm not saying you shouldn't write about so many different things. I'm simply saying that you should actually write about these in a way where you're actually keeping your target audience in mind. And a great exercise that you could do is to actually head over to AI. And in this case, I'm using ChatGPT, but you could use whatever model you want and ask it to act as your market researcher, right? And then you can simply ask it, hey, help me find the right psychographics for, and then you simply insert whatever you want to write about, right? It will then give you specific examples. So let's just assume that I have some expertise in helping people to sleep better, right? So as you can see, it's actually showing me 3 major psychographic segments who'd be highly interested in what I would like to write about, right? So you can actually pause this and actually go through it. The second way to think about this is actually thinking about problems you can solve, problems your current reader have. And again, this goes back to the main issue on Substack, is that people simply, they post brain farts. On one day, they post about their productivity routine. The next day, they're posting about a recipe, and people just leave confused. So what you need to understand is that people are going to follow you because you can help them solve a problem. And every piece of content that you should put out there should actually help your target audience get closer to overcome that specific problem, right? So as an example, on my Substack, I help people monetize their ideas, right? So there are a bunch of different subtopics that I'm writing about that all tackle that big problem, right? And you can actually use AI right here to help you get really specific about what problem to solve, right? Again, you're going to tell it to act as your market researcher, and you're simply going to ask it, help me find the big overarching problem that I can solve for And then you can basically start with your target audience, right? So let's say for dads in their 40s, right? And let's just take a look at what are the different things that we could actually help this specific demographic to solve, right? So health and vitality decline, feeding unseen, working family balance, right? So now I can actually take whatever theme actually looks good to me and I can go deeper. I can ask it, please break down in 10 different sub problems, right? We have the time scarcity syndrome. We have the split identity problem. We have the invisible burnout that's going on, and so on and so forth, right? So all these are great content ideas, and they can actually help you make sure that your Substack is on one specific topic for one specific demo or psychographic. So here's what I would like you to do right now. Download the prompts down below and actually make sure that your Substack is targeting one specific psychographic and or solving specific problems for one specific audience. So now that you've defined who you are actually writing for, you've already made a great first step. So now it's really all about how can you actually get your content in front of the right audience. So for that, you basically have two main options on Substack. The first options are notes. So notes is the first thing you see when you actually log into Substack, right? These are basically short form posts. Think of it as X or LinkedIn. You need to post notes because this is how people are going to discover it. So there is no properly discovery engine for long form posts, right? Most of the discovery is actually driven by notes. The second part are basically articles, right? These are the long form pieces. Some people call them articles, some people calling them newsletters. I call them articles because that's what they really are. And these help you go deeper and establish you as an authority because that is where you have the time to actually dig deeper on specific topics and serve your audience in more details. And what you need to understand is that it's not one or another. It's both together. You need to do notes and articles at the same time. And if you actually think about this, it means that Substack is not only social media, but it's also blogging, right? And this, at first sight, looks totally overwhelming. There are people who are doing blogging full time. There are people who are doing social media full time. So how can you do things that people do full time in your spare time? Let me just show you the spare time growth playbook that you can use to actually grow and do all of this in just 45 minutes per day. So step number one is understanding that posting and ghosting won't work, especially if you have a very low follower account. What you need to bake into your content strategy is to interact with other writers in your industry, right? So the amount of interaction that I would recommend per day is at least 10 comments, shares, and likes, right? Which means that you're simply going to head over and create a list of 5 to 10 writers who are targeting the same target audience or perhaps who are in target audience. And you're simply going to comment, you're going to like their posts, and occasionally you're also going to share some of the posts that you think are valuable. The interesting thing with interaction is that you can actually do this whenever you have, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes to kill. So you don't need a lot of bandwidth to actually do this. So if you stick to at least 10 comments, likes, shares per day, this will roughly take you 15 minutes. Okay, the second part is going to be notes. So I would recommend posting at least 2 to 3 notes per day. And notes, as you just saw, are pieces of content that are between 10 to 100 words, right? So again, these should not take you more than 15 minutes to create every day. And number 3 is writing the articles so that people who subscribe will actually get deeper insight to establish you as an authority. And I would suggest you start with at least 1 article per week. So now if you actually think about this, interaction will take you 15 minutes a day, writing notes 15 minutes per day, and writing 1 article per week will take you 15 minutes per day max, right? So this is if you actually want to do this every day. You could batch it, you could split it out. It's up to you. It's a flexible system that allows you to do this whatever fits your current lifestyle. Okay, so now let's just build your Substack spare time content engine together. So let's go a layer deeper. So the first thing is to commit to interactions whenever you have 5 to 10 minutes to kill, right? So you don't need to sit down at your computer and be focused and be in a deep work session, because interactions should be quick and fast. So with that out of the way, now let's just talk about ideas, because creating content is all about sharing ideas. So after doing this for over 10 years, I found that most people don't have an idea, but the problem is that having ideas and actually writing about them is basically two different things. Because I bet that you get ideas throughout the day, right? I get my best ideas when I'm going on daily walks, when driving, when daydreaming, right? But I rarely get good ideas in front of a screen. So here is what actually solved this issue for me. It's quick capturing my ideas and saving my ideas as soon as I have them. And for that, I use two specific tools. The first is Letterly. So Letterly basically allows me to voice dictate whenever I have an idea and then get it synced across all my devices, right? So that way I never start with looking at the blank screen. I always have ideas ready to go. And I also use Bear, which is a very simple and minimalistic note-taking app where I basically save all my different brain farts. The app really doesn't matter here. What matters is you getting into the habit of saving ideas as soon as you have them. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing, which I call the big content trap, is that people think that you go from idea to published piece of content in a straight line. And if you ever tried to write blog posts or write short form articles, you definitely know that's not the case. And the reason is because you're stuck in micro decision hell. And let me just show you what it really looks like. So first of all, you start with an idea, right? And then you're asking yourself, hey, should I actually make this an article or should I actually make this a note, right? So you spend a few minutes actually thinking about this. And then let's say you want to go with turning it into an article. So what happens next? Well, you ask yourself, what should be the title for this piece? What should be the subtitle? What should be the outline? What should be the introduction? What should be the call to action? What should be the conclusion? What is the ideal length? And during all these micro decisions, you get lost in research. You might even get lost in overthinking. And that's why most people actually never publish anything, simply because their workflow is completely broken. And it's exactly the same thing for notes, right? So you like, what should be your hook? What time should you post the note, right? What's the ideal length? Should you make it a story? Can you say this in fewer words, right? And once you've actually jumped over all these micro decisions, which actually suck up all your bandwidth, you actually start posting. So now the real question is how to get rid of all of these micro decisions so that you can actually have a predictable machine to publish content. And the first solution to that is committing to the master-slave concept. What is that? You're going to define what's your master format. What is the format that you are going to focus on and that you are going to become good at, right? On Substack, we basically have two choices. So either we go down the article path or we go down the note path, right? So the question that you need to ask yourself, what is the kind of format that I enjoy writing about, right? Because when you enjoy writing about something, it's way easier to be consistent. And in order to grow your audience, you simply need to stick to being consistent and doing the right things. I like to write long form articles because this allows me to wrestle with my ideas. And I just prefer going more in depth on my ideas rather than just post notes. So this is basically my main format, right? This is where I spend most of my time writing. Maybe you're like me, or maybe you just prefer writing short form notes. And both cases are perfectly fine. The issue comes when you're trying to do both things at the same time. Now you're going to ask me, hey man, how are we going to do this? When we know that posting on Substack requires both things. It requires notes and it requires articles. Well, this is where you should be using AI. So if you are mediocre like me in writing notes, what you're simply going to do is you're going to use AI to help you turn your existing content into short form notes. And if you're good at writing notes, then you can actually use your notes and turn these into longer pieces of content. And if you're terrible at both, well, then you simply stick one format that you'd like to master and do it consistently so that you can become good at one of these fast, because it's easier to become good at one thing rather than trying to become good at two things at the same time. So for that, I use a very simple tool called Stack Sweller, and it basically allows me to turn any one of my articles into a set of roughly 10 notes and then schedule them out and add them to my queue so that I don't have to manually log in every day and actually post this on Substack. Are all notes going to be perfect? No, they need a bit of editing, but honestly, I can just come up with a lot of different notes, edit a bit if needed to, and then basically add these to my queue so that I don't have to worry about writing notes separately when I already put some time into writing the article itself. So now comes the second question. How can you actually become good at something fast? The solution is called templates. So templates are basically recipes that you can follow to write about any idea in a compelling way. So when I'm writing articles, I use more or less always the same templates, right? So I have templates for my headlines, I have templates for my subheadlines, and I also have specific templates for the outlines and how I'm presenting my articles, right? So here is a very simple template that you can use for your Substack articles to get started. So first of all, your introduction is going to be briefly about the problem. Then you have the meat. So these are going to be 3 to 7 points that illustrate the main idea of your article. And then you're simply going to end with a conclusion, right? So let's just take a look at one of my most popular articles on Substack, which is this one. If you actually look at this, the main idea right here is that you should not monetize your Substack with subscriptions, right? So here you actually see me talking about the problem, right? This is my introduction. Then I have my different main points. So most of your subscribers won't buy anything, that paid subscriptions lead to burnout, that subscribers actually hate subscriptions, that even though subscriptions might work if you have a small audience, you're going to get locked into writing blog posts for $80 a month. And then basically here is the solution. The right way to use Substack when you have a small audience, it's by basically building your audience, building your list, and then selling offers to that list. Then another idea right here, and here you have the conclusion, which is your plan sucks, fix it, right? So now we could actually take another article, this one right here. So I finally found the cheat codes to monetize a small audience. As you can see, I talk about the problem and then I simply give them 3 to 7 points. So chasing followers is a waste of time. Giving away value trains people to expect only free. Then the business model for small creators is different than the influencer business model, and that you need to sell more to your existing clients. And then basically I end with a conclusion, right? So this not only works for articles, it also works for notes. So here's a simple note template that you can use. It only has 3 elements to it. So number 1, stop doing this. Number 2, give them the reason or the solution. And number 3, takeaway. Let me show you exactly how I applied this in my own notes. Take a look at this one. Stop posting on 6 different platforms. So that's the stop doing element. Number 2, the magic isn't in being everywhere. It's in being consistent somewhere. So as you can see, we're giving them the reason and then we're giving them a takeaway, right? So here's another variation of basically the same template. Stop overthinking your Substack niche. So this is basically stop doing this mistake. Instead, here's what you should do. Pick one thing that you know more about than most people, and then I simply enumerate these, and then write your next 100 posts are about that. And this is basically the takeaway, right? So templates might look a little bit mechanic when you first get started, but this will actually help you create way more content, way better content fast. So there are dozens of templates that you can use for your notes, for your articles. I talk more about that in the Substack system. If you want to get your hands on it, there is a link down below and a special offer for a limited amount of time. So now let's just quickly recap everything that we saw in this training. So first of all is getting clear about your audience. And you can do this either with digging deeper into the psychographics or into the problems that you help them solve. Number 2 is that you need to use Substack in 2 ways. Number 1, by writing notes, and number 2, by writing articles. Number 3, you can do all of this in just 45 minutes per day. And the way you actually do this is to interact and post at least 10 comments, likes, and share every day. Number 2 is that you post at least 2 to 3 notes per day. And number 3 is shipping at least 1 article per week. Interacting doesn't require you to sit in front of your computer. You can do this whenever you have 5 to 10 minutes to kill. So that way you check off their interaction box. Then you also want to stick to the master and slave concept, which means you're going to define whether or not you're going to put your focus on articles or on notes. And then basically use AI to help you fill the gaps. And finally, using templates to crank out content about any idea faster. So now you have a very solid overview on how to get started on Substack. And if you actually want to get all my templates, all the prompts, and go way deeper, I have a course called the Substack System. You can actually take a look at it. You'll find the link down below. And there is also a special offer for it right now. So I hope that this was helpful. And in case you want to go further, I'd be thrilled to welcome you inside the course.